What's up, guys? Today's video I'm gonna go over a very simple strategy that has been very helpful, and that is the opening range breakout strategy using the 15-minute candle. I'm gonna go over how to find plays for it, how to scan for plays pre-market, and then what the actual strategy is and how to execute upon the strategy. So first thing first, the way that I always find plays, the way that I look for plays in terms of big move potential is using unusual whales flow. So DKNG is one I'm watching very closely tomorrow, and there are multiple reasons why. In my opinion, DKNG is an A+ setup. And the reason being, we have these high volume OTM calls and puts, both sides expire 4/8, pretty cheap, like that a lot. So that's the first reason that gets my attention, is that's what I'm looking for, in the flow, is those high volume OTM puts and calls that are about to expire. This is that magnet effect, and it can really help when it comes to finding those big plays. The next is, just looking at the charts. So looking at DKNG here, I use the 20 to 25% ATR method. There's a couple videos I have on it if you are more interested in that, but it's basically just 20 to 25% of the ATR, calculate that both sides, and then look for levels where there are multiple inflection points as a trigger spot. But why DKNG? That second part of an A+ setup to me is VPA. VPA gaps, very helpful. And to me, the downside on DKNG, very intriguing, right? I'll have a put trigger here at 17.25, looking for these targets down here, but look how thin this VPA is. So that's, the first thing I really look for when looking into plays and finding plays. But when it comes to actually using the orb, the best way I found is using it on gaps, and then also I use it every single day on QQQ. So the way that I actually find gaps the day of, I have a scanner set up here on TrendSpider, scan through. Obviously today was a big gap down day, so a lot of tickers are gonna show up. Some days there are gap ups. I've gone through and created a liquidity watch list here. Liquidity, these are just names off that top 75 of unusual whales to ensure that I have liquidity, and I've traded them at least once or twice, so I know a little bit of how they move. This is how I find those gap plays, which I really love using the orb method. I send this out every single morning in the Discord as a free way, but if you are interested in TrendSpider, I'll put a link down below. There's a free trial. Now, the day before or the morning before, once we find these plays, I really use the hourly chart to look for supply and demand zones. And this just helps me to have a better sense of price targets, which I'll talk about in the execution piece of this. But PayPal, for an example here, was one I was looking at yesterday. I originally had call triggers at 118.8 and 116.6 for the put, but we did gap down very heavy, right? So using the hourly, I just went through right before in pre-market and looked at some levels that were very big. Ones that stick out to me, 112.15 and 111 on the downside. On the upside, we can look here towards 113.5, stuff like that. But that's where I really use that hourly. And those levels that I'm looking for are levels that have acted as both support and resistance, and they've been hit multiple times. More times it's hit, the more significant the level, right? VPA can also help. We know that these nodes up here are going to be much bigger support and resistance zones as opposed to these levels here, where we do see a very nice volume gap all the way down to about $100 on PayPal. So this is another name along with SQ that I will be watching tomorrow. Now comes the actual execution piece. So the first thing I do, in order to give me levels, I use the first candle, which is the 930 to 945 candle, to give me a high and a low. I just use the high of that candle, the low. The low will be my put trigger, the call will be my call trigger. Perfect. Then I'm gonna flip over here to the actual execution on the 5-minute time frame. The reason I use the 5-minute, less chop, in my opinion. So what I'm gonna do when actually entering into a trade is I'm gonna wait for a 5-minute close above or below our levels. Another rule that I have noticed is, say this candle here would close below that 113.2, on the fourth candle. If it is the fourth candle, I'm not going to enter right away. I'm going to wait on a retest. I like that method a lot. But in this case, PayPal right here, we get this close right below our level, right below that 113.2 at 113.02. Next candle, retest for 113.2. Can't hold it, right? Get a nice little drawdown, multiple retests, and then we finally get our flush. This is where, our levels come into play that we had established the night before. That 112.15, first target, nice place to scale. And then our second target at 111. We hit that second target, scaled fully out. Maybe we have runners just in case, but always manage your risk as well. Another very, very important thing when it comes to entering in these trades and using the orb is the type of candle. So long upper wicks, those mean sellers are coming in, right? All three of these candles tested our 113.2 level established by that 15-minute orb, but could not close above, had pretty decent selling pressure coming in from the top. So all of these gave us good opportunities to enter into puts. The second example I'll use is QQQ, and QQQ has been one of my favorite tickers to trade. And the orb method, I use it every single day. So yesterday I went through, actually pre-market, because we did gap down pretty insane. I went through and just looked at some levels that were, pretty big to me. And that first one, 357.7, you can see with our VPA gap here. And the second one, all the way down here at 352. So what I do, 15-minute chart, use that first 15 minutes. In this case, we had a high at 356.61, a low at 353.91. Now flip over to the 5-minute chart. Perfect. All right, cool. So in this case, whatever. This candle does close below, but is that first 5 minutes after, so that 20-minute candle right there. And then we get two retests, two nice entry spots, deflecting right off our 353.91 level and then falling down, and that's where that 352 comes into play. I also made note of this 353.25 intraday level. As you see, I use it later in the day, but as you see, had acted as both support and resistance a lot throughout the day. Cool. So on normal days, this probably doesn't happen. We did have FOMC today. We can also see how we can use that 353.91 previous support, resistance, turn support again here. Also a trend line break to enter into put or into calls after FOMC, and notice what level we are denied by, 356.61, or our orb high. These levels, how well they are respected is honestly pretty insane to me. But that's how I use orb. It's a pretty simple method, but the keys here are just going to be using candle types and waiting on that patient entry, and also managing your stop loss, right? I'll show you BA from today. I actually played BA and got stopped out. No strategy is 100% effective. Here on BA, we had the low at 117.18. I get this candle close here under 117.18. Very, very confident in my entry. Next candle, bullish engulfing, closes back over that 117.18. Before I could, I barely set my stop loss and I'm stopped out. That's why we have that stop loss. But look what level at the top of the day is tested and cannot be beaten. Causes 3 breakdowns, 180.57 or that orb high. This is how I use that orb strat. I use it every day for QQQ, and then I really like it with gaps. I found more consistency with the respect of the levels in the gaps. QQQ, almost a daily thing in terms of how well it respects those levels.